Hi, my name's Jay Kemp. I'm a director of photography with StoryKeep here in Toronto. What's a director of photography? It's a fancy cameraman. We have the opportunity to tell people's stories, and for us to go in, it's part of my job to capture the essence of the character, the environment, the emotion. And oftentimes we do multiple day shoots. The one we did here in Toronto was a 1 day shoot. So there's a little bit of nervousness on the part of the crew and part of the husband and wife that we did a story on coming in. Within minutes, we were very comfortable with each other. We walked them through the process of, setting up the camera, setting up the interview, letting them see the shot. And during this 1 day shoot, they were very comfortable. We had family members looking at the monitor. We were playing back clips. It was a wonderful experience, not just for the husband and wife and their extended family, but for us as a crew. We really felt like we were part of the process. I think everyone has a story to tell. And if this is something you think you or a family you work for might be interested in, then please reach out to StoryKeep, because we would love to have the opportunity to help tell your story.
Welcome to Who We Remember. I'm Jamie Younger, the founder of StoryKeep, and your host for this podcast. First, let me say how deeply honored I am to have you joining us for the show today. This is a place where we have uncommon conversations about things that matter deeply to most of us, the people we love, and the purpose we give to our own lives and legacies. Our mission at StoryKeep is to capitalize on the power of story for profound good in families of wealth. Since 2010, we've partnered with over 100 families worldwide, creating personal films and private podcasts that help a family navigate their shared narrative. Our work is designed to deepen connections. My conversations on this podcast center around two questions. First, whose life story from your family would you most want to see documented on film? And the second, what are you, as a person and as a professional, hoping to create and leave behind? Today's conversation is not a typical one, and I want to say, before we begin, how deeply moved I was when I first heard Johnny Sirpilla's story. It has stayed with me, and I believe it will stay with you too. Johnny is an entrepreneur, speaker, and author of the international best-selling book, Life is Hard, But I'll Be Okay. He has spent years helping others navigate life's hardest moments, drawing from his own journey with loss, love, and the power of perspective. Johnny is here to talk about his first three children, Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, triplets who lived for just 1 day. Their birth came after years of infertility, and their passing marked the beginning of a journey that shaped Johnny and his family for the last 30 years. Despite their brief time on Earth, their legacy is expansive and lasting. Johnny speaks with a rare honesty about grief, not as something to move past, but as a force that, when embraced, can deepen gratitude and even awaken hope. He reflects on what it means to carry on a relationship with children who are no longer living, and how he and his wife Susan eventually emerged from unimaginable pain with resilience, and what it means to live a life shaped by love, even in its most heartbreaking form. This is a conversation about loss, but also about presence, meaning, and grace. Please join me in this tender, powerful episode with Johnny Sirpilla as we remember the lives of Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, and reflect on the profound legacy they've left behind. So, Johnny, it is a total pleasure to be with you again and to share this time and space to be in conversation. It's no surprise to you, I'm sure, that I've never had the opportunity to talk with someone about this kind of person in someone's life. So I just want to say thanks for being here to share the story of your triplets.
Thank you, Jamie, for having me. And I love the opportunity to talk with you in a different way as you remember people of significance in your guests' lives. And so for me, where mine is unusual, mine is about my children, our first three children, but it is different from the perspective that our time together was short. We had two sons and a daughter, Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, and they were born and passed away the same day that they were born. And so, our relationship with them existed in a hospital, in one room, and our entire lifetime together was in that setting. And we've spent the last few decades processing and really working to get to a place where we had gratitude for that time. We always want more in this world, whether it's, more money, more relationships, more food, more everything, abundance, joy, pleasure. And we had to be thankful for what we were given and the time we were given and allow that to be a lifetime and make it one of significance.
Yeah. I had the opportunity, you wrote a book about the experience of your wife, Susan, and you learning that you were going to have triplets and how you got their baby room together and, the whole real story of their coming into the world and then learning that they were going to pass away very soon. And um, I I was really, really struck by the fact that you had the foresight, but I learned sort of through reading your book and knowing you a bit now that you have a lot of sort of foresight in moments that you decided that as painful as it was to go through that experience, that you also decided to video their funeral, and that you wanted to have that. And I just wonder how, in the light of the conversation that we're sharing about remembering and documenting, um, how you feel about that now? Like now that you look back on the fact that you did that and if you've looked at it and what place that document has in your life.
Oh, I'm so thankful that I did that, and I knew it might make some people uncomfortable at the funeral to see uh, cameras and multi-production there. That the company that videoed our wedding is actually who we hired just a few years later for our children's funeral, and while that may be unconventional, I was okay with that. I was there to honor our kids' lives, and I was thinking about the future when we would hopefully someday have other children, and that this was the only sacrament in the church that we would have. It would be our only memory to share with them was their funeral. And I didn't believe really that we needed to, place that in such a box of negativity and regret that we could never look at it. Part of this comes from, I'm a man with anxiety and I have a lot of anxious thoughts, and the thought that I wouldn't have anything tangible to hold on to, hopefully someday talk to our future kids about, saddened me for Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, that when thinking of them, we would allow something to be too hard, if you will, to experience. And I knew we'd have, it was a once in a lifetime. And so I went ahead and did it. And it's come in to be very useful in helping our next three children that we raised to understand their older brothers and sister and really what their mom and dad went through in order for us to be a family.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Um, One thing just want to say, and maybe you're really familiar with this, is how uncommon it seems that people say the names of their loved ones who have died, including their parents and grandparents. Like we so often skip over that, and I don't know if it's because just names, they hold the spirit of those people and then it becomes too tender. But I always felt comfortable with you saying Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, and I wonder if you can sort of speak to that, the value of saying and expressing their names when you speak about them.
So, it's for me, Jamie, it just has always been the honorable thing to do is to speak their names. It's not something that I should, um, have in any sort of shame or thoughts that, we would not acknowledge their names, and call them out. I think maybe in part it's because their lives were so short that the only time that we're saying their names is in remembrance. We're not saying their names when we're asking them to do something, um, as we did with their siblings, right? It is, or asking them to pray for us or pray for their siblings is a action item, I guess you could say. But I think in part because, we're always referring to them on that day, and that day is in the past.
Yeah. 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 What purpose do you feel like you are values? I mean, sometimes when I talk with people on this show, I talk about like what values guided this person's life that you take from that person, right? And sometimes it's humor, or sometimes it's integrity, or um and I'm wondering if you've thought about that, sort of the purpose or the value that you take from their example, from their entry into your life, and how that plays out in either your day to day or, specific moments in your own life.
I'd clearly have those. And thank you for that beautiful question because, you know, people don't know at times how to value loss and how to put it in perspective in a way that can be very healthy going forward. So first and foremost, we had to take some time to get there, to find the values, because on the short side, it was just so much grief that you can't see through that. But that ultimately, the clarity started coming in our minds when we really wanted to see the value, when we were thankful. And I'm going to say that again. We were thankful for the experience to be their parents, even for that day on earth and for the rest of our lives in eternity together in heaven. I think we are just thankful parents. And I know we're thankful parents because we worked hard at that. So the first value that came to us is understanding gratitude and really wanting to be grateful in a tragic event. And that's a little counterintuitive and something that some people might think about that, Jamie, and say there's no gratitude. We would all wish that situation to be different. Of course we would have preferred it to be different, but we don't go through life getting to pick and choose what past events can change, but we can choose how we reflect on those past events and how we want it to impact our lives going forward. And very intentionally and actively, we chose to be grateful that we understood the feeling of having 3 children and being parents to triplets and all the thoughts that went into that in that pregnancy and preparing for them and preparing for a life of 3 children at once and all of the things that goes with it, finances, medical needs, potentially, how to handle our working schedules. I mean, just all those things that we were able to plan for a life that we only had briefly. So that was a gift because we saw in each other how we were going to do this. And we worked through fears of how were we going to do this, because after years of infertility, to be thinking about having, 3 babies was a bigger thought than we had envisioned before. So we're grateful for that. We're grateful for the ways that they changed our hearts, the ways that they gave us life experiences that we can be in situations like this with you, Jamie, talking about people that we remember and that had an impact on our lives. So we're so grateful for that. We're grateful that we have been placed in a position where we can help others who have gone through their own loss, whether it's the loss of a child, if it is a loss of a friend or family member, and just help them process what it can go like in their minds if they choose to commit to seeking gratitude. And so there were so many things that, we see gratitude just in the way that they impacted the parents will be, and then ultimately for our children, Bo, Bella, and Stone. I'm so grateful that they have a relationship with three people that they never met, but three people that were actively talked about in their lives as their two older brothers and sister, and grateful to see them as grown adults today themselves, with their own relationships with their siblings, and really helping them have a dimensional relationship with siblings, that it's not just here on this earth, that there's more. And so our kids have that, and we're grateful for that. And and finally, the other value that we gained out of their lives was that of relevance and significance, and that how significant you can be in a short period of time, and that significance of a relationship doesn't have to be for a lifetime and 60 years or 80 years. Significance in a relationship could be that meeting that you have with a stranger on a street that has an impact with you, that you carry something from that, whether it's their spirit, the bounce in their step, their kindness, whatever it could be, the way that they attracted you in with something, a characteristic that you just felt drawn to that person. That relationship, as short as it may be, can be significant. And for our kids, their day on earth has been incredibly significant for the past 30 years, and it will be for the rest of our lives. And their name is known, really around the world as the book's gotten out, and people have read about them and see the legacy that they've left for us. I'm just so grateful for their significance.
Wow. I'm just it brings new meaning for me to hear you talk about that, because we say that, right? Like, you can have an impact in a minute, but when you put it in light of this, you really see exactly what you're talking about, right? That we all kind of downplay the power that we can have, the significance that we can have in such a short time, and their lives certainly speak to that. So thank you for that. You just shared that they would have been 30, the three of them. So I am curious, so much in your life and the life of your wife, Susan, and now your three children, Stonebow and Bella, have happened in those 30 years. And I'm curious how Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, how your relationship with them has changed in those 30 years.
Oh, I love that question too. Actually, I have goosebumps as I'm feeling that question kind of soak in, that our relationship has changed from grief to acceptance, and then gratitude, and then periods of grief again over the 30 years. Their 30th birthday somehow was a little bit more painful than the past maybe several years have been. We do a ceremony, as you read in the book, about, sending balloons up to them with their siblings. And so we did that in person, the five of us, and now with our children and their partners, we're FaceTiming and doing that, and they have their balloons wherever they are, and we have our balloons. And this year, the way that they just drifted and stayed in sight for so long was just so difficult to see that they just kept fading and fading and fading further away. But then our eyes were on them, on those balloons so long. So that was something that was just hit us really hard. And so that there was sadness after that, when typically there has been joy there. So I would say that this milestone has hurt some. But then there's other things that are so just joyful. Our son Stone, our youngest of the three children that we raised, his due date was February 22nd, which was Nicholas, Mary, and Peter's birthday. So 5 years later, Stone was due to be born on their birthday, and he ended up being another premature baby and was born 6 weeks early at 34 weeks. But then fast forward, he's in college and meets the love of his life, who he's marrying in a few months. And her due date was also February 22nd. And so she and Stone were due the same day that Nicholas, Mary, and Peter were born. And Mia ended up being born 6 days later. So, you know, it's pretty cool when the kids were talking and realized that they had the same due date. And then that was such a special connection with us. And that, you know, therein lies another way that Nicholas, Mary, and Peter had been present in their lives. And whether people, you know, see the symbolism and the beauty in that, or they just write it off as coincidence, you know, I'm not here to convince anyone, but we just know how it feels. And it just felt a blessing from them, support, and just a sign that Mia and Stone are meant to be together.
Yeah, yeah. I've been kind of like crying and also smiling here. I know we're doing this both in video and audio, and I just share with you. I mean, I think I said earlier, but it's worth repeating that, you know, my mom had a stillbirth before I was born, and Pete, my husband and business partner here at StoryKeep, his he had a sister who died when he was very young, and she lived for 4 days. And so we very much have felt the impact of those kids, those babies on our lives, in our own lives. And so as I sit and hear you talk about these really significant moments where you can connect with your kids now over Nicholas and Mary and Peter's existence and lives, it's healing. I have to just tell you, it's really healing for me hearing these stories um, in my own journey of sort of reclaiming my brother, you know, who came before me. So I trust that that is the case with many a listener. Um, I have to tell you, I went as we so often do, right, and look at people's LinkedIn profiles, and I was totally blown away by your bold, to me, LinkedIn banner page. You know, like there's a banner image on our LinkedIn pages, and I've never seen someone have a picture of their family in that professional space. And I was beaming when I saw it. So talk to me about the weaving and connection between sort of your professional journey and work in the world and putting your family up there.
That's neat that you noticed that. And I've had people comment that to me before, that that's unusual, but knowing me, that it's not unusual. And so, you know, first and foremost, I'm a husband and father, and that is the backbone and cornerstone of everything that I am. And so I really don't know how to approach my work life without those life experiences for me as a husband and dad. And so I'm just super proud of the fact that the way that I lead, and which is what my role has been in my career really for the last 35 years, is I lead as a family man. My thoughts, my business thoughts stem from that. There are things that are important to me for the associates and employees that I'm blessed to work with over the many decades that I've been working. And one of that is respecting their family time and their mindset that they go into their family life after work with. And I feel that as a leader, I have a responsibility for that. So, you know, it's a statement, Jamie, on LinkedIn that family is so critical. That's to me what really is the meaningful work that we do. And when we are at work every day for 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever it is, as leaders, we have the responsibility to send our employees home feeling appreciated, valued, lifted up, rewarded, and thanked, as opposed to beating them up at work and putting them in a negative mindset that they go home. And when they go home, they maybe are in a position of control, and then they take out and abuse those family members because they got beat up at work all day. So I think an employer has that responsibility to send people home positively with good energy so that they can make an impact. You know, if Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And, you know, that always stuck with me, that, you know, go home and love your family. You want to make a difference? Go do that. And if everyone got their household in order in terms of producing people with good hearts and responsible people and caring and good citizens and loving and welcoming people, you know, the world is totally different. And so that's why my family is my LinkedIn profile, because that's who I represent. And that's what I want to represent, is family.
You share this incredible story in your book that I was really moved by, that after Nicholas, Mary, and Peter had passed away, you went back into your old sort of working, I guess, at that point under your dad, or maybe you had taken the reins from your dad in your family's business, and sort of almost as a, I don't know, a foil, or, you know, feeling so different at that point in yourself about what was important, and kind of a life reset, let's say, you realized that you wanted to change the company culture, and you made some pretty bold decisions to really shift what it was going to be like to be an employee in that family business that you were running. Um, can you kind of just tell a little bit of that story, and then how that maybe shows up today in your work and what you do now?
Absolutely. So that is the first example of significance that I believe that they had, and their life and death had on me, is that a few weeks after the funeral, after my wife and I had taken some time, and both determined it was time to get back to work, and we did that, I know that when I returned back to work, the issues that were of pressing concern and requiring a lot of tension and debate were not significant at all. They were solvable work topics, and they were being approached with so much emotion and negativity and tension. And there was just a general lack of respect. We were a profitable, successful business, but I believed if we could remove that tension, that negativity towards each other, that judgment, we could be wildly successful, and in the process creating raving fan customer experiences where our customers felt something different about their engagement with us as a company. And ultimately that is what happened. And so I, acknowledge that, I never had a problem really at home before. And so that idea of me telling employees to leave their personal lives at home to come in to focus on work, I realized how narrow-minded that was, and really from somebody that just was blessed to live a good life. And not that I didn't have little issues here and there, but something of significance I had not experienced. And after that, Jamie, I just said, I couldn't leave my problems at home. I was carrying them with me everywhere. And so if I was going to carry them with me, I wanted to make it something that could be for the good of others. And I really wasn't paying respect to the challenges that people are going through, their health, their family members' health, a death, financial trouble, whatever it might be, divorce, all those things. Not that we should all come to work and complain and talk about our issues, but we should come to work in an environment that people are empathetic to those issues, and that we can actually create space where we lift each other up. And that's really what I wanted to do.
Mm, mm. And now in the work that you do with families, Um, how do you bring those things into the conversation and into the fold of what you do?
That's the fun part because my work today, in the last 8 years or so, I've just been focusing on board work, public and private companies, some large scale volunteer work that I'm just so honored to do, and then partnership in other companies and investing in other companies. And one of those companies today that connected us, Wellspring Family Office, is a multifamily office that deals with ultra high net worth families all across the country. And we give them the ability to live well and sleep well. One, they live well because of the finances that they've earned through their hard work. They sleep well because we take care of investing and taxes and helping with estate planning. But we wanted to add the be well component. And that be well is really where we can talk about what impacts your life today that causes stress. And typically for many families, it's not finances, where for many, many families, it is finances. Mm-hmm. Or others, it is not finances, but it could be the quality of relationships. It could be the loss of a legacy, which StoryKeep does such a nice job of helping families memorialize that and hold on to that. But as people lose vision of that legacy and what's happened in the past, guiding their steps for what needs to happen in the future, that's an opportunity that we have to bring to their attention. That maybe the focus has been on X in the past, but there's underlying issues here that are relationship based, that are maybe health based, mental health based, that we could deal with those and surround them with tools and services so that they can effectively kind of live and be well to the fullest potential. And so I'm comfortable doing that because I'm from family business, and even today, 3 generations of family business that I'm still a part of, and working with clients all over the country that are involved oftentimes in family business and family legacy.
I can't think of a person who would be better suited to do this work, to show up as your full self, and everything that you've lived through and loved through and been grateful through. So I'm sure those families are just totally fortunate to have you be part of their world and in their orbit. I think this might be a simple question for you, but maybe it's still a hard one to answer. How do you want to be remembered?
Well, first, thank you for the kind comments. It's an honor to have the opportunity to be face to face with anyone that is struggling with something. I think that is one of my purposes in life is to use some of the talents and skills that God gave me as a fixer, if you will, to help people go through challenging times. And I don't think I would have been able to do that as well if I didn't have my own challenging times. Mm. So for my legacy, I would love to be remembered as someone that no conversation was too difficult to have with me, and that someone always felt comfortable knowing that if we deal with something with respect and honesty and a genuine care and concern, that the other person's respected and valued in the conversation, we could talk about anything and it won't be difficult. It will just be meaningful. And so I'd like to be remembered for that. I'd like to be remembered as a man of faith, and just so thankful to God for the family that I have, including all 6 kids, and for the unique way in that, I've been able to raise them and be a husband and father to them. And I think ultimately, from a business standpoint, that I'd be remembered as an impactful leader. Then tried to navigate space for the best outcome possible, and my team knowing that it's my job to come to work every day to make them successful.
I don't know if I've ever had someone speak so eloquently about how they want to be remembered. And what I take away from that is how intentional you've decided to lead your life. And I'm going to take that as well. I'm going to take a leaf out of your book, Johnny. Really, such a model I think, for exactly what we're trying to do here. So thank you for showing up with your heart and your head and your spirit for this conversation, and so beautifully honoring your children, all six of them.
Well, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. And just thank you for the kindness and for the work that you both do. You and Pete at StoryKeep. I mean, I just think for so many families that are blessed to receive your services, there is, you talk about legacy. I mean, you're creating a documentary on the legacy of those families. And so I have so much respect for the work that you do and the questions that you asked and the way that you asked them. You're kind in saying that I was eloquent, but I think I was just responding to the beauty and the context of the way that you posed the questions.
Hmm. Hmm. I look forward to the next time we get to talk.
Me too.